NZ Aerosports, Icarus Canopies, now Gyro. That's right, we've rebranded, and Gyro is our next generation. It honours our founder, as that's the name we knew him by, but Gyro also marks the start of a new chapter. And not to be biased, but it's going to be fucking epic. Long story short, we're more us than ever, so if you're new to the sport, or even a Sky God Ninja Turtle, welcome. I think our valiant leader Lucy, Gyro's daughter, says it best.
And we still got that fuck yeah attitude. Rebrand! Woo!
Rebrand woo indeed, Lucy. Anyway, head over to gyro.com for more info and get amongst you legends.
I was 19, broke, unemployed, and sold my girlfriend's canopy for drug money. So I thought I better sew her a new one. What a sentence, and what a story. This describes the humble yet outrageous beginnings of NZ Aerosports, the home of Icarus Canopies, in the words of our founder himself. From getting a paratrooper toy from his mom, watching parachutes at the DZ as a 6-year-old, jumping off the wharf with a parachute made from bed sheets, doing his first jump at 16, sewing his first canopy on a borrowed machine at 19, and starting to sell parachutes out of a garage in 1986, Paul Gyro Martin had an undying love for the sky. Our company started with one man with the wildest of spirits and a true blue sky dream, a renegade. In the time that Gyro created and ran the Icarus Canopies brand until he passed away in 2017, he pushed everything he had to its limits. We miss him, and we always will. Gyro is the next generation of NZ Aerosports. It honors our founder, of course, because it was the name we all knew him by, but Gyro the rebrand also marks the start of a new chapter, our next jump. Gyro is the space between sound and silence, art and science, chaos and calm. Gyro is a state of epic tranquility that transcends understanding. That moment, in the door, in free fall, mid-swoop, where nothing but the present exists. A perfect balance of euphoria and thrill. Gyro captures our passion for flying and our commitment to designing break-the-fucking-rules canopies that deliver pilots pure, wild flight. Hey gang, so I got a new book out. It's called The Upside of Fear, and it's exactly what you think it's about. It's about the good side of, well, getting scared. In it, we talk not only about the science and biology behind fear, but the psychology as well. And it's not just coming from me, it's coming from some of the best in the sport. Omar Alhigelan, Jeff Provenzano, Maxine Tate, and so many more have contributed their sometimes terrifying stories to the book to help you overcome your fear. So head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com. You're going to find the link to the book there, as well as the other books. It's available in ebook, paperback, hardback, and audiobook right now.
Coming straight from the cockpit, it's another episode of Lunatic Fringe with the fucking pilot.
Ready, set, go! Back in the can for another edition of the Lunatic Fringe podcast. And it's a return guest, but the first time that I've had the opportunity to speak to him. So tell me, who the fuck are you and what do you do?
Oh, Jesus H. Christ. We had to start like this, brother. Hey, man, I had to start with Chris Stewart's voice in front of mine. Great. No, I love Chris. I'm just kidding, man. Hey, my name is Greg Windmiller. I'm the owner of Superior Flight Solutions, professional canopy pilot, retired, and canopy coach.
Dude, you are so much busier than that title gives off to.
You know what? I am, but it's just, man, it's like 2 weeks here, 3 weeks here, 2 weeks here, 3 weeks here. But I'm getting a lot more time off than I used to, though. I've got a great bunch of people that actually work with me. Got some great people work for me, and so it's giving me a lot of time to kind of enjoy my retirement / non-retirement after I retired from the military.
And here you are, though, burning your day off and your birthday, by the way. Happy birthday. Talking to my ass.
Thank you, brother. I appreciate it.
So, hey, like I always do, I'm going to jump you back to your roots, not necessarily just in skydiving, but in anything that mainstream would consider extreme. Like, how did it all start for you back in the day?
Yeah. I was born a poor white child. Just kidding. Steve Martin's the
I
joke.
got that. I'm probably the only
Yeah.
person that did get that.
I had to say that out loud because me and you were the only people that actually listen to this podcast are going to understand it under the age of 50. No, I started out in the military. I went through a special operations military free fall course at a very young age. And I was on a Halo team for a while. And like most people that go through Halo school, they only do it because it's a way to get to work and it's a job. And most people didn't do it on their own outside of work. But I really enjoyed it. And I said, man, I have to do this more often. And so I started kind of doing it on the outside as well. And so I spent a lot of time just skydiving for fun. And then I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, to be an instructor at the Ranger camp as a long range surveillance instructor. And then while I was there, I joined the parachute team there at Fort Benning, Georgia. Test jumped crew canopies for Red over at Flight Concepts. And while I was working part-time as a LERS instructor, and then my last year over there, they were like, hey, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'd like to go to the Golden Knights tryouts. And they're like, but my unit wouldn't let me go. And so the post commander was like, hey, do you want to come over here full time? Because at the time, the team was only volunteer. I'm like, sure. He's like, I'm going to stand up a full-time team. So he brought me and 3 other guys over in the full-time team. I went over there full-time, and about 1 month later, he retired. And the guy that was in charge absolutely hated us. So he chopped the team and was like, hey, you guys are done. And the commander of the airborne school, because I got stationed from the Ranger camp to the airborne school, he's like, hey, do you want to become an airborne school instructor since you got nothing to do for a year? I'm like, hell no. Not only no, but hell no. I will kill somebody over here. I don't have the temperament for these idiots. And he said, all right, well, let me know whenever you need some paperwork signed. And every now and then, like once every couple months, check in with me. See ya. And so I moved to Atlanta, and I was working at Skydive Monroe up there for Bill Scott, doing tandems and goofing off and shooting video, whatever. And then during the week, I was goofing off over at Flight Concepts.
Well, it's kind of funny because we talked pre-podcast and you kind of sideways let out that you have one of the most interesting origin stories leading into skydiving ever, and that's a shark encounter.
Oh yeah.
What the fuck, man? Who the hell gets scared into skydiving by a shark?
Yeah, the type of unit that I was in that I really, really wanted to be in only had 2 different teams. There were 6-man teams, and there were 6-man teams. And so there's 36 operators in the unit. And there was 3 water teams and 3 Halo teams. So the military freefall teams and then the water teams. Well, there wasn't any slots on the Halo teams, and you're supposed to be like in the unit for a really long time before you get the transition over there. So in order to go to a Halo team, I had to wait my time out on a water team. And we do stuff like pushing boats out of the back of a planes at high altitude or like 1,500 feet, 2,000 feet, and we'd follow them out with round parachutes and jump in, or we'd helo cast, like jumping out of helicopters from like 15 feet off the ground as it ripped down the river. And we took boats, but sometimes we didn't have that luxury. And so we were dropped off out in the middle of nowhere, and we have to do what's called over the horizon surface swims. And so we have to swim for really long, like you're getting out, like you can't see the shore. Oh. And so it's just, swimming through jellyfish and getting stung and murky deep water, and I really sucked at holding my breath. And because we weren't full scuba, we didn't have like all the money that the scuba teams had. So we're just called surface swimmer team. So we had mask, fin, snorkel type stuff like that. But swimming, you're like swimming at night, and there's like five of your best friends swimming along the night. Next thing you know, you get bumped inside the leg, and you turn around and tell your jackass friend to, hey, stop kicking me. And you're like, hey, there's nobody over there. Shit, they're all on the other side. And a few minutes later, your jackass friend kicks you again, and your jackass, come to find out, has a dorsal fin. And but we were in the Rio Chagres in Panama swimming, and we're doing what's called boat capsizing drills. And when the inflatable Zodiac boats get water in them, what you have 3 guys stand on top of a gun on one side. The other 3 guys are on the opposite side in the water, but they're holding on to the gunnels. And what happens is the 3 guys standing on top of the boat have ropes tied off to the handles, and they lean back. And what it does is their weight pitches the boat and tips the boat upside down. And the 3 guys that are in the water just hold on to the boat, and they actually get pulled on top of the boat when it's upside down. Oh. And then they grab the ropes, lean back, and flip it over. You can literally capsize a boat and uncapsize it in less than a minute. Wow. It's really fast. It's really efficient. And so we were in the water. We were just kind of playing around. We were in the water, and I was one of the guys in the water, and my buddy goes, hey, check it out, man. And I look over between us, and there's this rainbow-looking weird fish just kind of fluttering on the top of the water, just kind of like flat, fluttering. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Boy, that's kind of weird, So I'm looking back at the boat because we're trying to hurry up and do this. And all of a sudden the water just swirls and I just get spun around almost 360. And I'm like, what the hell? And the guy on top of the boat looks down, was like, shark, shark. And he was a lower ranking guy, and the guy beside me was higher ranking. He's like, he starts threatening him with, get me in this boat or I'm going to smoke you. I'm going to make you do push-ups if I get bit by this shark, you know? And so we're getting up in this boat, like, and we don't have time. So like, I'm getting up there, and in the process, we get up on top of this boat. We row this boat back to the dock, and there's these guys like yelling at us, "Hey, turn the boat back over, turn the boat back over." And we're like, "Go F yourself." Then we get back over there, and this Panamanian kid comes over and says, "Hey, you guys shouldn't be here. It's the largest hammerhead shark breeding ground in the world. It's where Jacques Cousteau's son got killed." And he said, hammerhead shark breeding season started early. They're here now. Get it? You do not need to be in the water. They're super aggressive. And so they brought everybody in. But the funny part, in the meantime, like I was getting up on the boat and I had an Ironman watch. And as I'm getting on the boat, my Ironman watch got ripped off my hand by the gunnel, and I lost it. And it gave me this nasty scar on my wrist. And so people ask what happened. I'm like, shark attack. Talking about shark attack. There's been a shark attack victim, like that scene from the was it couples retreat?
Which in a broad
sharks. I love sharks. I know the scientific name of a lot of them. I absolutely love sharks, but sharks can go fuck themselves.
Yeah, man. You know, I'll tell you what, it's really kind of funny because I've done a lot of shark dives in Fiji. I did one called the Benga shark dive, which is with open water, no cages or anything, with bulls and tiger sharks. And when I'm down there on air and I can see everything, it's great. But I'm also an open water long distance swimmer, and I'm fucking terrified of sharks because you're on top, you can't see anything, and anytime
you're making the motions and the splashes that attract them.
Oh yeah, man. So I'm right there with you in that I think sharks are amazing, and in certain circumstances I like checking them out, but when I'm swimming on the surface, fuck that. No. Not cool.
Yeah, it's like if you one of my bucket list things to do, like my top 5 things to do, whatever in the world. One of them is actually be in the water with great white. You know, I can't whatever, but dude, I want to go to Galapagos Island where they got the like super clear water and the big fat, you know, great whites there. But I love sharks. My favorite movie of all time, Jaws.
Yeah. Well, what's the place down in Mexico? Guadalupe.
I'm sorry, I said Galapagos. It's Guadalupe. Yeah, Guadalupe.
Yeah,
Island.
man. I'll tell you what, let's go, because that's been on my bucket list for a long time.
Dude, don't tease me, man. I will do it. I will do it. I will get a massage the whole way down there. But you get on a boat in San Diego and you spend like 3 or 4 days on this boat.
Yep.
In the water, and they have like a chef on board, and they feed you and all kinds of, man. And they're like, hey, we don't see any sharks, we'll give you, like, you get the next trip is free.
Oh man, if you can't find any takers to go with you, I'm in.
I am 100% going to do it. I just don't know when I'm going to get time.
So hey, back to the jumping. When you started jumping in the military, yeah?
Yes, sir, I did.
So starting jumping in the military, now having spent, you know, an entire career both with your feet in the military and in the civilian world, how does it differ learning how to jump in the military as opposed to going out and learning as a civilian?
It's funny though, because being in the military and having that military mindset, military think about all civilians. You know, this is back in the day of like before Point Break, you know, like before Point Break came out and all these people like all the mainstreamers came out like, oh my God, just gotta have, you know, lawyers, whatever. Before that, it was just literally the hippies, you know, it was the hippies and the free love and the carefree people and the people that whatever. But after Point Break came out, it was like everybody, the doctors, whatever. It was one of the greatest things for our sport.
Oh yes.
One of the probably top 10 greatest things that ever happened to skydiving is that movie right there, because it inspired a generation of generations of unique people who made our world, you know, just crazy, just diverse. So before that, it was the hippies. You know?
Well, it was the Fandango generation, right?
There you go. It was a Fandango generation. And so, you know, when I was in the military, it was like all the military thought the exact same thing. A bunch of pot smoking hippie, whatever, you know. So, you know, they had like, didn't really, like, they're dangerous and they do all crazy stuff because we watched the Fandango too, you know, and we thought that's what they did. But they're all carefree, lunatic, whatever. They're not safe, blah, blah, blah. We're safe because we do a safety brief. I mean, the military does a safety brief every single day. You know, if you're going to jump that day, you do a safety brief 24 hours prior. You have to do a safety brief. If you do a jump the next day, you have to do a safety brief. And the safety brief consists of complete EP review to include people standing up and actually practicing their EPs and going over every single possible EP that there is. They actually review it and go over it. So so they think we're super safe because we go over EPs. And then on the civilian side, they're like, Jesus Christ, the military dangerous. They only jump like once every 6 months. Yeah, they go over their EPs every time, but they only jump every once every 6 months. And they jump these huge canopies, so the funny thing is the military thinks the civilians are dangerous and the civilians think the military are dangerous.
Sure.
But yeah, and they're both right.
Of course. Well, I was lucky enough as an AFF instructor to have a couple of military guys go through the course with me years and years back. And of course, the one thing I recognized immediately is these fucking guys just do exactly what I say, period. Not even a question. It's a do this, and this. And the only question would be, wait, was that before this or this before that? That's it, man. And those guys were just straight to it. Whereas, of course, the civilians are like, what? I got to, and there's just military are just very much yes, sir. All right, let's get it done.
And something special like that, and being inherently dangerous military free fall skydiving, whatever you want to call it, is they know that like if I don't do what I'm told, there's a possibility I could die.
Sure.
And so they whenever they read off the jump brief and they say like EPs and stuff like that, it's word for word.
Wow.
It's word for word. There's no fluctuation. There's no way, because the memorization through the practical exercise, but also through the verbiage.
Sure.
They kind of use that technique also to help them remember what to do. But yeah, they're very, very like-minded. It's one of the things I love working about with the military. I love working for the military, but I love working with the military as well. Is he was like, hey, we're going to do A, B, and C on this jump. And some civilians are like, you can hear their ass pucker, through their pants. And they would take the air, oxygen out of the air for like a 10 person surrounding because they inhale so bad. They're like,
Sure.
And the military guy goes, okay.
Absolutely.
Hey, imagine teaching a military guy crew came through work. Hey, I'm gonna take my parachute. I'm gonna smack you in the back of the head with it. When I do that, I want you to reach back to your feet and grab it. And you're like, okay.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
There's no way. I mean, it just that kind of regimented training just wouldn't work in the civilian world. It just wouldn't.
No, absolutely not.
Now, what was the transition like? Because obviously you started out training in the military, but you transitioned to doing both. So what was it like when you started jumping in the civilian world? You had to do crossover training and all that, right?
You know what? I really didn't. Some knucklehead gave me a parachute and didn't tell me that, hey, the handle is on the bottom of the parachute and not up here on the chest. And so my first ever civilian skydive, I jumped outside with, I think Jay Stokes was doing my fucking wife's tandem at the time. I think Gino Suarez was who I eventually ended up working with both of them later on, was doing the video. I think I almost killed Gino because, we were out there skydiving and the tandem pulled. And he looked at me and he's like, he gives me a thumbs up. And I give him a thumbs up. And he gives me a thumbs up. I give a thumbs up. And he points at me. I'm like, you brother? Yeah. It was, I was like, oh shit, he wants me to open. I'm like, okay, sweet. I'll go ahead and open my parachute. And I go down and reach to grab the ripcord on my chest. I'm like, hey, it's not there. Where'd it go? I'm like, oh shit, I can't find this thing. And after a period of time goes by, I'm like, oh yeah, it's in the bottom of the container. I forgot about these things. Nobody ever gave me a class. They just handed me a parachute and said, go.
Oh,
but anyway,
man.
after I killed him, my first parachute that I jumped was an accuracy parachute. Like my first civilian parachute I bought from Tony Thacker at Skycat at Rayford. But I just fell in love with accuracy. And to me, the coolest thing in the world was to be able to land wherever you want. And I would tell students this when I go to class. I'd say my first 2,500 jumps, I never jumped a parachute smaller than 265 square feet. These were all 7 cells at accuracy, whatever. When I moved to Georgia, I was jumping at Skydive Opelika at Buddy Blue's place, former Buddy Blue. He rest in peace, just passed recently. But Gold Star Major, Special Forces. But they would take a paper plate and they would put it out in the field, and they'd put the paper plate on top of the picnic table. And this is like I had like 500 jumps, 600, 700 jumps, and they would put it on the picnic table. They put it on top of a phone booth one time. And I would tell a story. It's like I said, kids, a phone booth is a little box that you get in to make a phone call with a phone that's attached to the box. But I just thought it was so cool that I could land wherever I wanted, and no matter where it was. And like they would like move cups and plates aside, or cups and boxes aside, and put the paper plate around on top of the picnic table. I'm like, okay, well, I'll land on that, I guess.
Sure.
I didn't think it was a big thing. I thought everybody who had experience could do it, but I just fell in love with accuracy. So I had no interest in downsizing it whatsoever.
Now, as you were making that transition, because you were active duty military at the time, was it a bit of a culture shock getting onto the drop zone and seeing how free and loose the civilian skydiving community can be?
I was spoiled, it really wasn't for me. And the reason being is because when I went to a civilian drop zone, it was at, I was working at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. So Rayford drop zone was the civilian drop zone. So
Sure.
but that was inhabited mostly by military freefall instructors because the school was right there, the Golden Knights were there. So most of the staff and 90% of people there were military, And then when I went to Fort Benning, Georgia, the closest drop zone was Skydive Opelika in Opelika, Alabama. And Sergeant Major Buddy Blue was running the drop zone. and more than 75%, 80% of people there were from Fort Benning.
There you go.
So I grew up spoiled on military, on drop zones that were like mostly military based. So there wasn't like the whole like crazy culture. Well, there was a crazy culture, but we were the crazy ones. And so
sure.
Different kind of crazy.
Is yours a military family?
My dad was in the military. He was a truck driver in the Army. That's about it. And there was no real like desire to go to the military by anybody else. I was just from the time I could remember,
Sure.
I would tell like my Army story to kids, whatever. I said almost every child, as far as a boy, had those little green Army men.
Yeah.
Everybody had their favorites, the rifle guy or the bazooka guy. Nobody liked the radio guy, but or the laying down guy, whatever. But like I always wanted to be one of those little green Army men, that was my whole thing. Like I thought that was the coolest thing. So when I was growing up, I only ever wanted to be a police officer, a stunt man because of Lee Majors.
Oh yeah.
He had faucet.
Fall guy, man.
Yeah, fall guy, brother. or an Army guy. I wanted to be in the Army. Now, that was kind of like my thing.
What did the family think of the direction you took in the Army? Because I mean, it wasn't just soldiering, man. You're doing some pretty intense shit.
I never told him I joined the Army, so I kind of went and took my test. Got a day off of school, went took the test, whatever. I joined the Army at 17. Couldn't ship out until I was 18, so I had like a summer off after school because I graduated like in May and then August, so July. July went off. But I'm like, hey, just let you guys know. They're like, what do you want to do? What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I'm like, hey, just let you know, I'm going in the Army. And they're like, huh? And this was before the first Gulf War.
Sure.
So, I went in the Army, joined the Army, went to basic AIT airborne school, and then off to do what I was doing. And then, the first Gulf War happened, and my parents were like, oh my God. I'm like, it's okay. It'll be over in a couple hours.
It's kind of funny. Oh, you and I are very similar in that I joined the military at 17 as well and had to wait until just after my 18th birthday. So in July, my 18th birthday was in June. In July, I was in boot for the Navy. And ended up
July, I was in the basic training for Army in July.
Where'd you go to boot?
Fort Benning, Georgia.
Oh, in July.
Yeah, fun. I went to basic training, AIT, and the airborne school. AIT is your advanced individual training to give and mine was infantry, so it's one of nug, carry rock, nug, carry gun, nug,
sure.
don't shoot rock, shoot gun. So, but my whole thing, I stayed at Fort Benning because the airborne school is right there.
Sure. Now, as you're making the transition and you're getting just as much into the civilian side of skydiving as you were the military, you obviously went and you said you're chucking drogues. So you obviously went through the training to become a tandem instructor. Were you doing AFF as well?
Yeah, not till later. I didn't do AFF until later on. But the funny thing I was at Fort Benning, Georgia. And Paul Rafferty was one of my idols growing up, and he was like at the time he was the only like 5-time world champion, and just an all around great guy, man. And I met him at Fort Benning or Fort Bragg, and I went to Fort Benning. Me and a buddy of mine, we were on the parachute team that supported jump stuff at Fort Benning. It was a demonstration team, and me and him hopped on a C-130 on a Friday. I took a C-130 from Fort Benning, Georgia, to Pope Air Force Base, hitchhiked. Because we kind of arrived from somebody we didn't know off Fort Bragg, off Pope Air Force Base in Fort Bragg. We got over to Rayford Drop Zone. Paul Rafferty gave us our tandem rating that weekend. And it was me and my buddy. And like under canopy, we're yelling at each other. And he's like, turn now. I'm like, no, go straight. And he's like, turn now. Like he's on the front of me trying to like control the canopy. There's a guy on the ground with the windsock in his hand running around in circles as a joke. But we got our tandem rating that weekend and then hopped on a C-130 on Monday and flew back to Fort Benning. So
what a trip, man.
We got really lucky, man.
I never got to meet Raph, but oddly enough, he was who hired me to work for Skydive Cross Keys. Via email and a telephone call, he had hired me, and sadly, before I got to meet him, he had passed. But
Such a unique individual.
yeah, oh yeah, for sure, for sure. Now, so you start working in the civilian world, chucking drugs and everything, but when did the urge to go the competition route and all that start coming about?
Well, when I was at Fort Benning, we were doing, we did demonstration, we did doing crew stuff, canopy related work. And it was like me and my buddy Dan Levitt and Chuck Blue um, and Chuck Blue's, I think, wife at that time, Christine. We were doing four way, and they had the Georgia Skydiving League, the GSL, and like Danny Page was running at the time, and so we were doing four way then, and then the Golden Knights had an invitational thing. So I was dabbling in four way, a little bit eight way, canopy relative work, and accuracy primarily.
Mm.
So when I went to Golden Knights tryouts, I had about 2,500 jumps when I went to tryouts. Most people have about 100 to 150 jumps when they go tryouts. So I had about 2,500, and so I think there's only two people that actually beat me in accuracy out of all the cadre, and both of them were on the accuracy team at the time.
Wow.
One of them was Brian Krause, and the other one was Brian Smith, and they were both currently on the accuracy team. And they're like, "Hey, you did pretty good at accuracy." And so when I finished tryouts, they're like, "Hey, you want to come over to the accuracy team?" And I'm like, "No." Oh, and the reason being is like, as a new guy on the team, your job is to shut the fuck up. Like
Right.
if you're like at a team meeting and everybody's talking, and the new guy says, "Well, I think we could do this," and everybody looks and goes, "Shut the fuck up, new guy." You're not allowed to talk, right? And so they're like, "Hey, you have to go to demonstration team." And so they're like, "Hey, you want to go straight to the competition team?" I'm like, "Dude, if I go to a certain competition team, they'll fucking hang me in the streets. That's a big no-no."
Right.
And the competition team is like, "We don't care." I'm like, "Yeah, but everybody else does. It's a big deal with them." And so, yeah, and then 6 months later, I was the team leader. So,
Oh, that's awesome.
so everybody that wasn't on the competition team hated me. So it was a very, I was blessed beyond measure, obviously. The sergeant major, Gary Moeller, he was former accuracy guy, so he loved accuracy.
Wow.
Brent Dixon, a buddy of mine, he was former range instructor. He was on the team, so I got pretty lucky. I've been blessed my entire career, man. I got from how I got started. I told the story once. I broke my ankle and my wrist my first night jump in free fall school.
Oh,
And I'm a private dude, and they send me to the medic, and the medic goes, "Hey, we got to put a cast on those." I'm like, "Hey, here's the deal, man. This school is for special forces. It is a special force military." I'm like, "Dude, I'm a private in the regular army. Because I'm a LURS unit, I get to go through it, but it's like it was the only conventional military unit getting to go to unconventional training." I was like, "Dude, I'll never get a chance to ever do this ever again in my entire life."
Mm.
I was like, "I have like one or two more jumps to do and I'm done." And he's like, "All right, well, take care. I'm gonna bandage you up, come back and hit me up whenever you're done, and I'll give you a cast." I'm like, "All right." And that dude, man, I would kiss that dude on his lips to this day if I found him. But when I went back, you have to do like progression jumps, and then you have to like do the last two jumps. There's one of them is like it's a daytime with everything, oxygen, weapon, everything.
Sure.
It's called wall locker. It's called a wall locker jump because it's everything that's in your wall locker. You have to put it on and jump it. And there's a daytime wall locker, and then you do nighttime wall locker. And what happened was, because I was at the medic, I missed my daytime wall locker jump. And I'm like, fuck. And the first sergeant of the school, his name is Bubba Ham. To this day, every time my graduation comes around, I send Bubba Ham an email or a Facebook message saying, "I appreciate you." But he said, "Kid, go." There's a white Ford or a Chevy, I can't remember what it was, Dodge pickup truck. He goes, "There's a truck out there. Go wait for me in it." I got there and sit in it. And I'm like, "Shit, he's gonna take me back to my unit personally." Like the first sergeant is literally gonna drive me back to my unit, drop me off, or take me to the hospital, whatever. I'm like, fuck. He comes outside with all this shit in his hand and throws it in the back of the truck, and he's like, "We're going to Rayford," and drove me in his POV all the way out to Rayford. And Gene Paul Thacker, who didn't know me from anybody, said he's going to let Bubba Ham take me and Bubba in the Twin Otter by ourselves and go do my graded exercise jump.
No shit.
Gene Paul Thacker, who I didn't know from Adam, and he didn't know me from Adam, let this fucking kid do this jump, man. And then and that was about 15 years or 14 years later, I was sitting in the bar at Rayford. At this time, I'd known him quite quite well, and I was on the Style Axe team, and they did away with Style Axe team in the U.S. because they're doing away with style in the U.S. whatever. And I moved to a TM team, and I was competing in local canopy piloting meets. And Gene Paul was like, "So you're into this little small parachute stuff, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Seems pretty stupid." I'm like, "Yeah, it is." He goes, "Stupid and dangerous and whatever." He's like, "That's how we got to where we're at today." He's like, "Keep doing it."
Nice.
He's like, "What do you?" He said, "What do you need to get better?" I said, "I need a pond, Gene Paul." He's like, "What is it? What is that?" And I kind of detail what a pond is. He's like, "Well, if you had a choice, where would you put one around here?" And I told him. He's like, "All right." And Gene Paul's about half lit on red wine. He goes, "All right, well, meet me here tomorrow. We'll dig you a hole." Fucking 9 o'clock in the morning. The next morning, my phone rings. "Where are you at, punk?" I'm like, "What?" And he's like, "I'm over here with a backhoe ready to dig you and bulldozer ready to dig you a pond." I'm like, he's fucking serious. And no shit, I staggered over there half drunk with a cup of coffee in my hand. And he started digging that pond that day.
It's kind of funny, man. I learned a long time ago. You see an older gentleman that's a little bit drunk, tells you he's going to do something. He's probably going to fucking do it.
And a young drunk kid, he ain't doing shit.
No, but the old guys, man, they remember that shit. They still do it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's honestly, I think anybody that's been long-term in the sport of skydiving can look back at somebody somewhere along the lines that did them a solid, that made all the difference in their career, right?
Yeah, I have no shortage of people who did me solid. So that's why if I get a chance to do somebody solid, dude, I'll never say no.
Yeah, man. I mean,
I'll go to my way to do a solid for somebody.
it's pass it on. That's been the theme of this podcast, and it kind of just grew on its own. Is that the overriding theme of this thing has always been the community, because that's what it boils down to, right? I mean, that's what gets you at the drop zone early and keeps you there late. The jumps are great, and the stuff you learn to do in the sky is amazing, but it's the people that keep you in it long term.
That's what this sport's missing. The fireside chats, the campfire chats, or whatever. Yeah, we got social media, but that's like kind of expanded into like bashing and hate, whatever. But the fireside chats, we're just that's where there's so much experience and so much bonding happened. And I think that's a lot of what the sport's missing, the bonding stuff. So thank God for the boogies coming back. Because the boogies kind of died off for a little while, and they kind of but thank God for all those boogies coming back.
Well, I think it's coming back around, right? Because I mean, there's been a real spike in stuff like this podcast that's more conversational based, that I think is trying to fill the hole that was left behind by the lack of that bonfire kind of environment. So I really do feel like it's coming back.
Yeah. So, some people will just like hearing themselves talk. And so they do podcasts, whatever. And so be it, but I don't care, man. I don't care if your stuff's filled with 59 minutes of bullshit. If you have 1 minute of education that somebody can go, "Oh, wow." And change your life. So be it, man. The hard part is getting the people to sit there for the 59 and a half minutes to get to that point.
But, yeah, man.
I love the freaking podcast. I love the information being put out. And it's just so inspirational to see people stepping forward and like recognizing the whole stuff missing. I wish I had the time to do something like that, because I would love to do it. But I'd like to see it like a group one.
Sure.
The problem is a group when you have to have everybody like in the place.
Sure.
You can't constantly step on each other, but yeah, just people that feed off each other.
Oh,
I had a barbecue at my house one time, and Craig Gerard was in town visiting, and I had him over there. I was like, "Hey, you want to come over for a cookout? Do dinner?" He's, "Yeah, sure." And one of his buddies he worked with on his Golden Knights was Scott Rhodes. And I was like, "Hey, Scott Rhodes, come over, whatever." And it's like, "Hey, do you mind if we invite Tim Nunzio over?" I'm like, "Sure, come on, whatever." And dude, they were all three at my house, and we were sitting there. We had a barbecue cookout, whatever. And I just sat there with my jaw like touching the table the whole time. And I love to hear myself talk too, bro. But you know what? I didn't say shit. I just listened there. I'm like, wow, this is the stories they were telling. I was like, dude, and I find myself a bit of a historian buff. I love the history behind skydiving. Like in the Golden Knights, like you're like, hey, who were the first 13 members of Gold? Like you could name them. It was like a thing. Like who did the first baton pass? Like Steve Snyder. So like it was like all this stuff. Like remembering the past was so important to them, because you had to respect your heritage. But I find myself a bit of a historian buff, and I know quite a bit. I like love to listen to it, and I heard stories I never even thought I'd heard. Like it was incredible. It was probably one of my top 5 nights of just hanging around people, and I was doing the one thing that that I preach, and that's like, hey, if you want to have a great conversation, be a good listener.
Oh yeah.
And, I couldn't speak not because I was trying to be a good listener. I couldn't speak because I was dumbfounded and baffled by the stuff they put out. It was such a good night, man. I had such a great night listening to those guys chat.
Oh yeah, well, and that was kind of the thing too. And again, what this has become about is I get to have these amazing conversations with people that I admire and share this bond with or look up to, and it kind of just I get to preserve it all, which is something you don't usually get to do. And the best shows that I've ever done are the ones where I barely get to talk. Because I'm like you, man. You put me in a fucking empty room with white walls, and I'm going to talk the whole goddamn night. I mean, that's just how I am. And so a lot of times I'll tell my guests, if I don't get to say a fucking thing this whole podcast, then it was a good show. This shit ain't about me. I think you're my 302nd episode. There's nothing my audience hasn't fucking heard from me yet. So the less I talk, the better. Now,
most of my career was like politically correct. I'm in the army, and I'm like, find myself the first 5 seconds I said a cuss word. So I'm like, oh yeah. I gotta kind of, I've been able to loosen up a little bit more, relax a little bit more. I'm like,
sure.
I feel like I get to be me a little bit more. And so
sure.
It's kind of more relaxing.
Well, I was super lucky in that many, many moons ago, I got the great good fortune to start writing for Blue Skies magazine because Cola reached out to me and they went out of their way to tell me, be over the top, be inappropriate, talk about shit you're not supposed to talk about. And so not that I had a problem with that in the first place, but that kind of became my brand. So now
you ever have.
Yeah, no. Believe me, being reserved has never been something people charge me with. That's for sure.
I tell you what, man, your personality and the way you talk about things and the way you describe things and the way you use like colorful like explanations that keep you wrapped up. Your audiobook, man. Oh, dude.
Oh, thanks, man.
You do not promote your book enough. I teach seminars and lectures on fears, and there isn't a single class that I don't teach. There is a single class that doesn't have a section that talks about fears. And when I listened, not read, I have the attention span of a fucking gnat. When I listened to your book, and I was like, because I do a lot of traveling and what trips, whatever, it's perfect for me. I was like, I fell in love with your book, dude. It was like, it just hit home. We use different phrases and terminology here and there, whatever, but I was like, it's word for word what comes out of my mouth to people, and I'm like, and I see it all the time on Facebook. I saw it twice yesterday. I saw it twice. One of them was like US fun jumpers or whatever, and one of them was like beginner skydivers. I'm a moderator for. It was like somebody said like, hey, how do I get over the fear? Hey, and everybody's trying to get over the fear, and I was like, oh, you gotta read this book, man. If you don't read the book, I'll even give them sections. Hey, read this chapter, this book. That's what you're looking for.
Awesome. It's actually the funny thing was that book was inspired by the beginner skydiving forum that you're talking about, because I would see all these posts about overcoming fear and here and there and the other thing. And then I would talk to listeners of the podcast that would tell me their favorite bits from most every interview was hearing somebody like Jeff Provenzano or Omar Al-Hijalan or these fucking rock stars in the sport talking about when they were shitting their pants, and everybody going,
dude, I knew Omar's alive. I didn't know the outcome of that one. I'm like, oh shit, I hope he makes it.
Dude, he told me that story
for over 20 years, and I'm like, I hope he makes it. I'm running root for him on the side. Please, Omar, please make it. I'm like, Jesus criminy, you had me too wrapped up in that book with the way you describe it and using you saying in his words whatever. I was like, oh shit.
He well, I mean, he was a hero to me when I started out in skydiving, just because I started with the same thing, man. It was a point break beginning, and then as soon as I got a hold of my first ever Chronicles video, you're watching Olav and Omar and Mike Vale and all these guys doing this insane shit. He was an instant fucking hero, and then 28 years later, for him to be a friend that's telling me these incredible stories of the shit that he went through in Nepal, that's one thing that I actually think gets talked about a fair amount in skydiving, but it doesn't get highlighted enough, is the ability to deal with and overcome fear.
Yeah. My biggest thing is to talk about stressors, stressors or additional things that fear, like what stressors do you have going on in your life that compound to the fears or whatever. And I tell them, I start these seminars. I don't like, there was a University of Iowa study done. I can't remember the dates or whatever. There's the study of fears, and like skydiving was one of them. I talked about like one of the things I say, like, all right, when your parachute's fully open, right? In a specific scenario, your parachute's fully open, functional, it's not going to malfunction anymore, whatever. What are your three biggest fears under canopy? What are your three biggest fears? You know, and obviously the number one, I said, what is the number one most dangerous one? It's like, all right, the fear of collision. I was like, is that a fear you should always have? And like, absolutely. That's a respectable fear that you should have. But we use education and knowledge and try to like make ourselves smarter in order to negate those fears, in order to help deal with those fears. But it's a rational fear. And then there's some irrational fears like how hard or soft is the earth going to be and landing going to be? Oh, like,
Right.
I'm like, is that rational? No, because you're in complete control. You're the one in control of it, 100% in control with it, as long as you do certain things. And then where am I going to land at? You know, if you do proper planning and you're like, hey, I'm going to exit here, whatever. But if I don't exit here and I can't make it there, okay, I have another landing area plan. You know, it's like if you can proper planning and education and training, whatever, you can negate those fears down to nothing. You know,
Sure.
And those fears enter their heads like there was like once every 30 seconds to 45 seconds. Now imagine how long they're under canopy. You know, that's a lot of fear going into canopy.
Oh, yeah.
When they open up, the first thing they're thinking about is like, oh my God, please open, please open, please open. When the parachute opens, they're like, oh my God, where's everybody at? Please don't run into me. Please don't run into me. Please don't run into me. And then there's a period of time where they're like, I sucked on that jump, or I was awesome on that jump. I hope their cameras were turned on or whatever, or hope nobody's giving us turned on. And then there's a little bit of like, oh God, where's everybody at? Where's everybody at? Where's the drop zone at? Am I going to land there? Where's the drop zone? Am I going to land there? And then it's the constant, please nobody run into me. Please nobody run into me. And then it starts getting down lower and lower to the ground. It's like, please God, don't let this suck. Please God, don't let this suck. Please God, don't let this suck. You know, there's a lot of fear going on. And so, and I tell people in my classes, I'm like, hey, here's the deal. Today, I'm going to remove one of those fears. And I tell them, if you do what I ask you to do, notice there's a caveat. If you do what I ask you to do, I guarantee you by the end of the day today, you're going to have one of your softest landings you've ever had in your entire life, or your money back guaranteed. And I never get anybody money back. I said, and I'm going to eliminate one of your fears. And I'm not eliminating their fear. I'm giving them the knowledge to kind of fight their fear. And, you know, that fear might come back later on or whatever, but it's the water thing. If I tell you, like, drink this water, it's special landing fluid. It's flare fluid. And they drink it. They're like, their flares are the best ever. You know, they're going to, you know, it's the positive reinforcement and the positive mindset that like set them up for success.
Of course.
But yeah, and I tell them, I was like, if you do what I ask, and I said, by the third jump today, I promise you're probably gonna have one of your softest landings you ever had if you do what I ask you. And I say third jump because the first jump, they just do what they normally do with some seminars, whatever. They just do what they normally do. The second jump, they're trying something a little bit different, and it usually goes to shit.
Right.
You know, it's usually worse than their first. We'll like, they'll do the first jump and they'll go in and do a seminar for about an hour, about 2.5 hours, two and a half hours, depending on the time frame and the class size. We do like a seminar for like 2.5 hours. And then they'll come out and they'll do that jump and they're trying something new. And sometimes they'll overthink it or do whatever. And it'll go to shit. And a buddy of mine, when Shaggy-O, he's the manager of it, comes to, hey, dudes come in and land. He's like looking out there in the field. And he kind of like, without even looking at me, he goes, 2.5 hours. And that's what they learned. Yeah. But we come back in the classroom. I said, hey, check it out. This is what I asked you to do. This is what you did. This is what your end result. Now do you see? Oh yeah. Sure. And by the third jump, they're usually spot on. And so yeah,
well, and I mean, let's face it, there's no level of satisfaction greater than doing something that scared you, figuring out that you can do it even though it scared you, and then figuring out that you did it well and you had a little fun too. Holy fuck, man, there's nothing better.
Yeah, overcoming our fears or things we thought we were scared of and realized, wow, I wasn't really scared of it. I was scared of the fact that I tell them, like, the biggest fear in the world is the fear of the unknown, you know?
Sure.
And you don't know what you're about to do. You don't know the outcome. You don't know the possibility, whatever. And once you like, oh, okay, well, wait a minute, I can control that. I control the outcome. That's where the biggest fear like gets eliminated at, you know? And so it wasn't the fear of that particular thing. It was a fear of not knowing all the things about it, not knowing how to do it properly, or not knowing the outcome, or
sure. Man, well, and it's learning the ability to differentiate between fear and panic, right? Because you can control fear. Panic is uncontrollable.
Yes, 100%. There's like, that's, I love the way you worded that as well. It's like when you have somebody like I've been doing so long, I can tell they're thinking under canopy. When I'm looking at somebody like, and they're 100 feet, 200 feet, 300 feet off the ground, and I see that right foot twitching, I'm like, oh shit. Or I see their hands like opening, closing, opening, closing, opening, closing. I'm like, they're gonna flare at like 75 fucking feet. Or I see their feet and knees snap together like a German soldier. You can hear them clicking. I'm like, oh, they have no intention on standing up. They're gonna peel off no matter what if it's a soft landing. And so, but you see them like panicking, whatever. And so I'm like, okay, that right there at the point, that's what I have to control. I don't need to teach them how to flare. I'm going to teach them that, but that's where I need to focus at. I don't need to feel. I need to focus on when they're 300 feet off the ground. So what I'm going to do with this guy or this gal in particular is, hey, right before you turn it down, when you turn your base, this is what I want you to do. Take a deep breath, let it out, look at your shoulder up and down, clear inside, airspace, whatever. Another nice slow deep breath, do a nice slow easy turn, because that's where you can find out where the panic starts coming in there and start trying to negate it before that point. And so they get through that point and they're like, oh my God, it hasn't hit, so sure. It's finding that point in the altitude, or their body screams, or they're what they're doing on a canopy. You go like, okay, this is where this guy or the gal starts panicking at. This is where this gal starts freaking out. If I can touch them at that point, their landing's going to get so much easier for them.
Oh, yeah. Well, we had talked outside the podcast. I had said one of my favorite things about doing tandems was learning how to become that 20-minute psychologist. And you got 20 minutes to figure out how to love that. You get that person out of the plane. You have 20 minutes to get a perfect stranger to trust you enough to throw them out of a plane.
We've talked before about this, and I said, I spend about an hour with my students before we do our first jump. We do a safety brief or whatever. And most of my stuff from my waivers, I already know their wing loadings. I already know who's going what first, what plane, who's going what load or what order, whatever. And I'm talking to them for about an hour or whatever. And I'm like, all right, tell me about yourself. And how'd you get into skydiving? Do you have any previous injuries? And what they're saying has no relevance.
Right.
The way they're saying it. And if they say, well, and I start seeing like hyperventilating before they get ready to say, okay, that's where my fear is at. Or if I talk to them like, what do you do for a living? Well, I'm a so-and-so, and I do some job. And if the job is like something that's very mundane or, monotonous or whatever, something that's just like keeps them in a bubble, whatever. And I'm like, all right, this person is like a closet, freaking, adventure person, whatever.
Right.
Or if I see this person and they're like, well, I'm a superintendent, I'm a principal, I do whatever. I do this job where I'm in control of at least people, whatever, blah, blah. And you get them out there and they're timid, skydiving, whatever. I'm like, all right, check it out. Take this personality. What makes you this? Right now, what do you think about over here? And I just unplug the wires, reverse them, plug them back in. And different person.
Yeah.
Funny thing is, after like the second or third jump, when I record people's landings, I'll keep recording them for like 10 or 20 seconds after I record them, after they land, because you can see their body. And they're like, some of them, they just start dancing, they start like, and some of them are looking around. They like look around like left, right, really fast, whatever. And they look down at their feet, left, right. And they can't believe they landed so soft or can't land accurate, whatever. And so I'm like, I showed them, I was like, listen, I don't want you to do that anymore. I want you to do that feeling.
Yeah.
Don't remember what you just did. Remember that feeling you just had when you were on the ground. Strive for that feeling again, and everything else will work.
That's awesome.
It's figuring out, the tricky part is figuring out, hey, I have to talk to you with a stern, voice, but also I need to say things over and over and over to you. With this person, I need to speak softer. I need to say, hey, buddy, like you did a really good job this time. This next time, let's think about, and then there's some people like the military guys. I'm like, shut the fuck up and get on the plane. So you have to figure out how to talk to those people individually and communicate with them. But also, here's the trick too. Some people are like, hey, when you talk to so-and-so, you were really, really nice to them. And you're, so sometimes you have to like segregate them to communicate, so it's not perceived as like, hey, you're being really, really sweet to that guy over there. And I'm like, well, he's kind of cute, Yeah. So sometimes like the hard part is, and sometimes I'll tell people like, hey, listen, everybody in this classroom, I am talking to this person only. Blah, and I'll say, what I'm saying to them.
Sure. Well, it's fun though, right? Because you get to play different characters, and it's just different versions of you, but it's so many years of experience that has taught you, I need to be a different version of me for this person or that person. And it's just as fun trying to figure out who the fuck you need to be to get that person where they want to go.
Yeah, yeah. It's figuring out their personalities and figuring out how they learn and how, okay, what character do I have to be to get into
Exactly.
this person's head? Hey, I can say A, B, and C all day long, but when I hold my hands in the air and go like, oh, and do it this way, now they get it. Hey,
Yeah.
guess what? That's what I got to do. And that's
Yeah.
where I have to swallow my pride and swallow who I think I want to be and who I want to be. Like, and I have to be whoever they need me to be. So that way
Of
they
course.
learn best.
So how did Superior Flight Solutions come about?
Oh man, I've always wanted to do my own thing for forever and ever and ever and ever. And I was teaching canopy coaching as far as accuracy and some crew stuff in the late 90s, early 2000s, whatever. And then when I started the canopy piloting team for the Golden Knights, I started that in 2007 with a guy named Chris Moore. And after that, like the first year he retired and I just kind of kept going by myself for a while. I was like, man, this is what I want to do. This is what I love, and I teach canopy stuff, but like doing the high performance stuff, I was always worried about. And so I'm like, how am I going to develop who I want to be or how to teach different people in this aspect? Because I can talk about landing a parachute all day long.
Sure.
But when it comes to like high performance and somebody might die if I misspeak or if they misinterpret or misunderstand what I'm trying to say, or I don't say it properly, somebody could die. And so
Sure.
it took me a while to get the confidence and the knowledge. And I said, like, the first person I ever did a canopy course through was Isaiah McCoffey. And he was on the Team Fast Tracks. And to this day, one of the best canopy pilots I've ever met in my life. He's retired, lives up in, I believe, Connecticut right now, making furniture for his family business. And then I went through a canopy course with Jason Maletsky, Nick Batch coaches for a little while. I did as many canopy courses as I possibly could. And at 8,000 jumps, I didn't realize how much I didn't know. I learned more about canopy stuff at 8,000 jump point. And I'm like, I need to become a student again. And once I started becoming a student, I just got stuff in. So I was like, how do I want to teach this stuff? And I took a little bit of each one of them. I took a little bit of each one of them and some phrase, whatever. And I kind of like put my little spin on it and how I do things. And it's worked out really well for me. And so before I retired, I started coaching, and it was basically Greg Windmiller's canopy course. And I was doing it for about 3 or 4 years before I retired. And every new sergeant major of the Golden Knights would come in and say, hey, you should think about leaving. If you leave the Golden Knights, you'll probably get promoted really fast. And I'm like, you do realize I make more than you, right? Every single weekend is a different drop zone. But I was on the East Coast because of travel time from Fort Bragg. So every weekend I was on a different drop zone. And so it was just an easy transition. When I was coaching so much, one day I was in the Army and one day I wasn't. But I was doing canopy courses. And then I finally switched it over to the Superior Flight Solutions. It's like I advertised at one time, Superior Flight Solutions canopy course. And a buddy of mine goes, hey, could you do me a favor and let me advertise this as Greg Windmiller's canopy course? Because I don't have people signing up. It's like, sure. And so he said, advertise Greg. It filled up in like 12 hours, 12 students per day for 3 days straight, 36 students in 12 hours filled up class.
Wow.
And then I said, all right, do me a favor. Go on Facebook and change the name back to Superior Flight Solutions. He did it. Like 8 people dropped out.
No shit.
So I'm like, all right, go ahead and change it back again. So it was a hard transition trying to sell the company name because everybody knew. So when I get there, Spirit Flight is this. I have my hats and have my logos and have my t-shirts and have all this stuff, whatever. And they're like, so you work for Flight One, huh? I was like, no, I don't work for Flight One. But I preach everybody to go to those courses as well. But yeah, so I started that in 2015, 14, 15. Brought on Matt Leonard, who was my first ever employee. And I swore up and down, swear to God, I was never going to have an employee because I didn't want to put my family, my lifestyle, my everything in jeopardy for somebody who spoke or whatever. And I told him, I was like, hey, if you don't show up for a course, if you show up, blah, 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 if you do this, blah, 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 like you're gone. No questions asked, you're gone, And Matt, who has been one of my best friends, like a brother to me, and I love him to death. And he's literally he's my 3 a.m. bro. He's the bro you can call him, He's worked for me the whole time, never let me down, and he's done so many amazing things with Momentum. He started flocking company now, and they do a lot of flocking stuff. I participate with them sometimes, which for me is like I'm a student again. It's amazing,
right?
And then last year I picked up 2 other people, Robin Jandal, who you just had not too long ago, amazing human being.
Yes.
She's an absolute angel and a beast.
Yes.
She's piloting and an angel as a personality and a human being. And then Andy Plisco. Andy Plisco runs Evolution Ratings. He's an examiner at every in every discipline. And I said this about Andy about 5 years ago. It's like he is the most knowledgeable and professional instructor I've ever met in my entire 30 something years of skydiving.
That's awesome.
He knows word for word everything in the book, the way he explains it, the way he does it, and the way he runs his courses is without a doubt the most professional. Like I said, he's been doing this. He got his stuff through Brahm yeah, he's got his company's Evolution Ratings. Still, he does his own company stuff on his outside. And Pete Lebrano, the day I retired, started military contracts, Pete Lebrano's been with me. And I said, Pete doesn't work for me. Pete works with me. Like
Sure.
We've always worked hand in hand. He's a former operator out of Special Operations Unit in Fort Bragg. And he's been one of my closest friends as well. And
Awesome.
And one of those I've been able to rely on. But yeah, we all work together, and it's been wonderful, man.
Well, you know what's really cool too is the skydiving community. Obviously, you've got options for all kinds of different courses that you can go through, but it all boils down to who fits into what type of training the best, what personality works best. I say it's exactly the same as preferring one AFF instructor over the other. Doesn't mean the one you don't prefer isn't a good AFF instructor. It just means you learn better or you vibe better with this other person.
It's not your flavor.
Absolutely. So having different canopy courses and different people out there teaching, it's not so much competition as it's just options, right?
Yeah. I tell people, I was like, listen, I'm like, if you couldn't make this course, next week there's a course right down the road taught by this other company.
Yeah.
I can't recommend them enough. I tell people, if you go to one company and one company on one person alone, you're holding yourself back.
Yes.
I do the same thing to drop zones too. There's some drop zones that specifically teach, like, we only have this company come teach here. I'm like, congratulations, you're inbreeding your drop zone.
Yes.
Which I understand about. You don't want different thought processes, but skydivers learn different from different people. Like, you can't hold back your people because of contractual whatever. But I preach Flight One, Alter Ego, Brian Germain. I preach all of them.
Sure.
And I tell people, if you don't go to these other people, you're robbing yourself of experience and knowledge.
Well, here's the bottom line and again, I come from the same basic generation as you do, well before canopy courses, where how many fucking people do we know are bent, broken, or dead because there were no canopy courses?
Exactly.
So I don't care who it's with, take a canopy course for Christ's sakes. I figured out where my level of canopy flight progression was and where it was going to stay as soon as Cornelia Mihai tried to teach me how to do a fucking 450, and I got halfway around that, got dizzy, and went, no, I'm good with 270. I'm never doing that again.
No mas, por favor, no mas.
Absolutely. But if you're not at that point where you're, comfortable and competent in all conditions under the canopy that you're in, you need a goddamn canopy course. There's just no way around it,
100%.
no matter who it's with. Now, that being said, people have been sitting listening to us. They think you're the guy that's going to be able to dissect how they learn. The courses that Superior Flight Solutions offers is the direction they want to go right now. So how do they find Superior Flight Solutions? How do they find you? How do they get a hold and come out and play?
We do, my website's www.superiorflightsolutions.com. We have a Facebook page, Superior Flight Solutions, obviously on Facebook. We run a Robin Jandal and Andy Plisco are actually home based, and myself are home based out of Rayford, North Carolina. We run a canopy course the first weekend of every month there. And then from there, it's just basically on demand. I'm not reaching out to 1,000 different drop zones trying to grab whatever. If they want to contact us, they can. But we do a lot of military contracts as well. And the reason why I hired those guys and gals, because I'm so busy with military contracts and my military stuff that I'm doing, is that I don't have a whole lot of time for civilian stuff. So those guys all run my stuff. But yeah, contact us on website, contact us, email greg@superiorflightsolutions.com, and we'll hook you up. Just gotta have the drop zone agree to host us.
Sure.
And then from there, it's all easy.
Well, I have yet to see a drop zone that doesn't want to invite rock stars to teach their local community what to do.
Yeah, I haven't. I've run into one or two in the U.S. that pay, and it's because they're brand and loyalty to whatever. And I respect that. That's that's free market.
Sure.
That's their choice. But yeah.
Well, the benefit too is if there's one local drop zone that prefers one company over another, chances are there's another drop zone within driving distance that can host as well. So for anybody listening, if you want Superior Flight Solutions to come out to your drop zone, there's going to be a way for you to get to work together.
Yeah, absolutely, brother. Hey, and if they chip in a little bit extra for my charity, you never know what I may wear.
What's the charity? Tell me. Promote
So,
it.
so we did a charity, a free fall to fight cancer, fibrolamella. It's a fibrolamella foundation, and so fibrolamella is a cancer that strikes children between the ages of 2 to 17. When they actually found out you have it, you're probably like
Ooh.
terminal.
Ooh.
And one of my best friends, Kevin Gruyan, and I get choked up talking about Kevin and Sean Gruyan. They lost their son to it. I got taken for a tandem skydive before he passed. And when he said, he's like, "Hey, I want you guys when and if I pass, I want you guys to do a charity, raise money for this stuff, and 100% of the proceeds go towards research, finding a cure.
Awesome.
None of it goes for advertising, whatever." And there's actually a girl who took some of the money from the funds, and she actually found something scientists missed, and it was a reoccurring gene that happened like from the autopsies or whatever. And she's like, "Hey, this is a link between," and so she's like on the way to finding a cure for it or something to help it. But the Fibrolamella Foundation, Skydive Carolina, one time they're like, "Hey, can we have a sis boogie? We want Greg." And somebody made a comment about me wearing a tutu. I said, "If you raise this much money for my charity, for my children's cancer charity, I'll wear a tutu." And it got down to the point where like they raised $3,700 in like 12-hour period. And so I could wear a tutu, a wig, I think a halter top, wings. There's all kinds of stuff I had to wear. I walked out and I had to wear it all weekend. I walked out of the classroom teaching a block of instruction, and the tandem students were all looking at me, and I'm like, "Don't judge." Yeah.
That's awesome.
Fibrolamella Foundation, in any cancer charity, any,
Of course.
anything, because I lost my mom to cancer. So
Of course, man. Yeah, for sure. Well, dude, Greg, I'll tell you what, man, you've been a super busy guy, and we finally got to get it done. I'm so stoked that we got to sit down and chat. We could keep going for fucking hours, but
you're already over time limit. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no. This is absolutely perfect, man. I can't thank you enough for taking your birthday morning to sit and talk shit with me.
Dude, it's been my absolute pleasure, man. And if I did it for one reason only, is to promote your book, man. I cannot preach enough. This is like a book made for skydivers. This is the book that you need to latch onto if you have any comments, any thought processes about fear or any hidden fears.
Oh, well, dude, I greatly appreciate it. And again, I really appreciate you and your time.
Yeah, brother. Enjoy your wine, buddy.
See you, brother.
Later, brother.
Well, there you have it. Another episode of the Lunatic Fringe podcast, brought to you as always by, well, wait, not as always, actually. Brought to you now by Gyro. Formerly known as NZ Aerosports, you'll head to gyro.com for their next level line of canopies. By Pussfoot, the Extreme Sports Collective. Head over to pussfoot.com to check it out. By Summit Parachute Systems, check out summitparachutesystems.com to talk to Jarrett Martin and the gang about kick-ass pilot rigs, rigging courses, and more. By Flyaway Indoor Skydiving, go to flyawaytn.com and check out all the cutting-edge stuff to come. By Pure Spectrum CBD, head to purespectrumcbd.com to check out their wide range of CBD products. And as for us, head to the lunaticfringepodcast.com to listen to any of the hundreds of episodes currently available, hit the link for our YouTube channel, pick up your copy of the Lunatic Fringe book or The Accidental Stripper, and get a sneak peek at upcoming guests. Once again, thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.
fuck